जय हनुमान ज्ञान गुण सागर जय कपीश.
Namaste, welcome to Courtroom. Today we have with us Dr. Tejas Motwani, and his is a case that I usually try to get on the show so that students know the actual reality of the profession instead of the daydreams that are being sold to them. Now he pursued his LLB from Christ University, one of the initial batches from Christ University. Then he pursued his LLM from NUS Singapore, very coveted LLM. He worked in Singapore. He came back to India. Then he went to Oxford to pursue a master's in public policy. He came back, started, or rather, entered into legal consulting. While he was consulting, he pursued and finished off his PhD. And now he's a teaching fellow at the Harvard Kennedy Law School. His case is a primary example, one of the many, I'm sure, in the field, that a lot of daydreams are sold that if you're not from NLU, life ends. And Dr. Motwani here is teaching law at Harvard. I don't think that you can perhaps cross that zenith in the teaching field at least. So namaste sir, welcome
नमस्ते
to
नमस्ते
TLOI talks. तो LLB करने के बाद आप पहुंचे सीधा LLM में, और सबसे पहला प्रश्न बच्चों का यही उठता है कि जी कॉस्ट बताएं और ये बताएं पैसे कितने मिलेंगे. तो सिंगापुर से कॉस्ट कितनी है LLM करने की?
जरूर जरूर. पहले सर, थैंक यू फॉर हैविंग मी हियर एंड आई
Most welcome. We are honored.
and thank you and I also congratulate for doing this good work. I mean, ये जो आप करते हैं, it is very helpful from a student perspective. I wish हम जब पढ़ रहे होते तब इतना मतलब एक होता opportunity to go to YouTube and then just Google and then listen to people. So good work on that and I hope you continue doing it. आपका जो क्वेश्चन है वेरी वैलिड क्वेश्चन कि सिंगापुर से करते हैं LLM, तो व्हाट इज द कॉस्ट एंड हाउ आर थिंग्स एंड रिटर्न ऑन दैट. See, Singapore being an Asian country, the cost of LLM is relatively lower as compared to UK or US. And when I say relatively lower, in Indian terms, when you convert the dollars, the Singapore dollar is also around 50-55. So obviously the cost is going to increase like that. But it would come to around 20 to 25 lakh rupees. And plus obviously lifestyle, where do you live, how much do you spend, all of that is also going to add to the cost. So बहुत बार होता है कि if you are going there for the first time, you want to explore the country and you want to do a lot of activities which perhaps are difficult or not able to do in India, and then you get these opportunities. So a lot of people get attracted by that, and so obviously, as I said, आपका lifestyle क्या है, उस पे भी cost would vary and depend.
तो रफली अगर हम मान के चलें तो 25 से 1 लाख रुपए लेकर चलते हैं.
बेस मिनिमम
आप लेके चलते हैं. ठीक.
उससे कम नहीं होगा मेरे ख्याल से, उससे ज्यादा ही होगा.
Now, is it worth it to pursue a LLM if, let us say, that you're coming back to practice in India? And how is the job scene in Singapore versus, let us say, UK or US? Because since you know that market, so that you can brief us about that. कि LLM करने के बाद क्या opportunity?
Sure. So, a lot of times the important question before we go for an LLM is to understand why do you want to do an LLM. अब उसके why के 3-4 reason हो सकते हैं. One could be that I want little more education and I want to study at a good place where I think I'm challenged. Two could be I'm very clear I want to do this LLM to work in that market and to convert this LLM into a job. 3 could be, and a lot of people, I have seen friends who are like, yeah, I wanted to spend a year out somewhere outside India, meet new friends, meet new people, and then also at the while earn a degree. Now, these are few of the reasons. लोगों के अपने reason हो सकते हैं. Some people want to target a specific professor and a specific course, like an environmental law course or an arbitration course was very famous in Singapore. So people used to get very focused कि यार मेरे को ये arbitration वाला course करना है, LLM इन professor से पढ़ना है. There could be various reasons. ये 3-4 reasons हैं मेरे हिसाब से. और ये भी हो सकता है वन वेरी वैलिड रीजन इज कि यार मेरे को एक्सप्लोर करना है, मेरे को अभी तक समझ में नहीं आ रहा है ये मेरे लिए अभी लॉ है नहीं है, 5 साल निकल गए मेरे को, या 3 साल निकल गए, मेरे को एक्सप्लोर। तो अब आपके आंसर्स इसमें से हो सकते हैं, एक हो सकता है, इसमें से कॉम्बिनेशन हो सकता है, आपको सब्जेक्ट भी एक्सप्लोर करना है, आपको कंट्री भी एक्सप्लोर करना है, आपको नई चीजें भी देख। तो अगर आपका वाई क्लियर नहीं है और आप फिर एलएलएम करने जाते हैं, तो आप एक रिस्क ले रहे हैं। तो यू विल रिस्क, हम उस पे बात कर रहे हैं रिटर्न ऑन इन्वेस्टमेंट के टर्म्स में रिस्क ले रहे हैं कि मैं जा रहा हूं और आई विल गो देयर, आई मे लाइक इट, आई मे नॉट लाइक इट, आई मे लर्न, आई मे नॉट लर्न, आई वुड गेन एनीथिंग, एंड देन आई वुड कम बैक एंड start litigate. So then that's a very high risk on the return part. If you are clear that I want this subject, I want this professor, I want to do this, then very good, then you will achieve that. Or if you are still in that exploration stage, okay, I want to go there and I will try to convert it to a job scene, then perhaps it is possible if you work towards that during your LLM. So what I'm trying to say here is, and not to confuse much, that you need to know your why. अगर आपका वाई क्लियर नहीं है तो आप वो रिस्क ले रहे हैं, वो आप सोच के चलिए कि भाई मैं ये रिस्क ले रहा हूँ, आई विल इन्वेस्ट दिस मच, इफ आई हैव टू कम बैक, आपका वीजा एक्सपायर हो जाएगा, स्टूडेंट वीजा, आपका डिग्री मिला उसके 3 महीने के बाद आपको जॉब नहीं मिला, तो इफ आई हैव टू कम बैक, देन हो सकता है कि भाई मेरे को इंडिया में बहुत टू गेट दोज रिटर्न्स इन इंडिया आई हैव टू वर्क वेरी हार्ड. सो and on the other side, if you're very clear I want to come back to India and litigate, then perhaps it makes no sense to go and do an LLM. LLM is not going to help you much in litigation. It might help your thinking process, it might help your research skills, it might broaden those, but purely from a return on investment perspective, in my understanding, it doesn't make sense if you want to come and litigate in India to do an LLM abroad. On your other question, that why should I pursue an LLM which will not help me if I don't get a job, or if I don't get a job in that market, or how do I get a job in that market? Will that help me? So there are few markets which can be looked into, like a Singapore market. They do allow Indian lawyers. You have to take some exams, you have to qualify for the foreign law practitioner there, and once you are able to do this, you would be able to work in Singapore. There are a lot of qualifications there, but the thing is that you will have to go there and explore and take those additional tests or exams as well. I'm not saying people don't do it. A lot of people do it, people convert it, and people work there full time. But an effort will have to be put along with doing your LLM, along with finishing your degree, and along with finishing your coursework. So that additional effort will have to be put. College or a university like a NUS, or even in UK or even in US, even if you study at the best of universities, they will not promise you a job or a placement, and they will not even assist you with that. You will have to yourself, if you say for example study in New York, आपको न्यूयॉर्क बार लिखना पड़ेगा, और न्यूयॉर्क बार लिखने के लिए आपको खुद को मेहनत करनी पड़ेगी कि न्यूयॉर्क बार में क्या क्या पूछा जाता है, मैं क्या एग्जाम्स दूं, कैसे कन्वर्ट करूं उनको, वो आपको खुद मेहनत करना पड़ेगा. सिमिलरली यूके में आप जाते हैं तो यूके का जो बार एग्जाम होता है PLC, वो आपको क्लियर करना पड़ेगा. मतलब यू विल हैव टू डू दैट एडिशनली ऑन द साइड, at your own cost, at your own knowledge, and at your own expense. So in short, it's a difficult market to crack, but it is not an impossible market to crack if you are serious and if you want to work towards it.
Perfect. Now, in your experience, when you come back, and your own experience in teaching and in consulting, what is that? Let us say that when you look back at your journey, when you were starting out, you did your LLB, something that you think that you would have known may just have helped you better. So basically, an advice that you may just want to give to your younger self, and that younger self can be the students that are watching this episode right now.
Yeah, I think perhaps I could have been a little more careful at drafting properly when I was in law school. That was a good time to learn. Once you start the jobs and once you start working, you learn on the job and then you will improve, but that will take some time, and that will take some, every time you spend on a draft extra, it's a cost for the company in simple sense. अगर आप 5 घंटे में एक चीज खत्म कर सकते थे, आप उसके लिए 10 घंटे ले रहे हैं, तो there is a cost involved to it. आप दे रहे हैं, आपकी कंपनी दे रही है या क्लाइंट दे रहा है, but there is a cost involved to it.
Yeah.
I could have been or I during law school in 5 years, perhaps through a course or through some self learning, the legal drafting could have been better, or could have been more educated on legal drafting. So that is the advice which I would give to people listening, that that is the time, those 5 years are the time. Okay, please learn whichever field you are. Either you are doing corporate job, you're doing litigation, you're doing consultancy, everywhere drafting is going to be very important, and that is why lawyers are paid. Normal layman could also write the understanding of contract between two parties, but the legalese which is there, where to put a comma, where to put a semicolon, where not to put a full stop, where to continue the sentence, which punctuation to use, all of that matters, which is why lawyers are important. So that I would advise people to perhaps practice and learn a little more.
Now, this is one point that Dr. Motwani has given, which I am absolutely in 1001% agreement with also, is that drafting is a skill that is most often not looked at really. And now, when you come out of law school, let us say even with DU grads, I see this. Now there is just no skill, and so basically you are just like a layman who knows bare acts now post graduation, and takes you another 3 odd years to come to speed as to what is the actual requirement of this profession. And this is mind you, this is golden advice that you have given, that can save somebody's 3 to 5 odd years. I'm really grateful that you've said this. Now, when it comes to your own experiences, so for example, as we started out, that with the NLU scene, people are really, the 12th graders are really obsessed with getting NLU, and certain daydreams are sold. Students are taking multiple drop years now. Even in most cases, I've seen 2 to 3 odd drop years, and in the hopes of getting that pay package, basically right out of college, that that I will just drop 2 to 3 years. What is your advice, since now you are a teaching fellow, you're teaching at Harvard, you've been through the grind basically, and let us say that since you are not from NLS or the NALSAR of the world, which is, if you've had the tags, it is great, but since you are a person who has climbed up the ladder, as one says, what is the advice to these kids who are completely disheartened because CLAT is now extremely competitive, that it is advisable to take 2 to 3 drop?
I wouldn't say so. I mean, for me, drop year was like a big thing, and I wouldn't do it, and I wouldn't advise anybody to take a drop year. What perhaps kids could do is, at the max, try once again, but at least in that 1 year, go to some college, go to some university. I am not sure the idea of dropping an entire year, sitting at home and just preparing for CLAT, if it's a good idea. In my opinion, I don't think one should do that, especially because nowadays the market has become very broad. 10, 15 years down the line, in 2000, 2005, the demand for lawyers was not as much as it is now. So there is a possibility that you would still get a job if you are from those non-NLUs, and if the idea is that I should get a good paying job, there is a possibility that you would still get it if you are not from non-NLU. However, everything, whether you are at NLU or whether you are at any other non-NLU or any other traditional university also, the most important thing is how much you are putting in. It is not that just because aap NLU aaye and you score 45 throughout your semesters and then you will still get a job. You might, because NLU carries that weight and all of that. but still you will have to work hard, and you will have to apply yourself. For how I looked at it rather was that if I have to get that job or get that university admission or go to Oxford or XYZ thing, I might perhaps have to work a little harder. And that hard work would be required. I'm not saying that just because you go to NLUs, you don't work hard. A lot of smart people, and I've met so many friends and colleagues from NLUs and who are great and really hardworking and really apply themselves. But I have equally met people from the other world who are committed and who have done great things in life. So all I'm trying to say is, one, it doesn't matter if you are ready to commit and if you're ready to apply yourself and work hard. And two, if you want that tag badly, perhaps what you may consider is that you may still go to a university and apply for CLAT again. And if you get through, then perhaps it makes sense. But otherwise, just dropping that 1 year wouldn't be a very prudent thing, in my opinion.
Right. Now, I want to ask you, since in our last interaction we had with Mr. Shubhendu Anand, there were a lot of comments about research scholars. That what exactly are these? What exactly is the role? What exactly are these folks up to? I mean, what do they do? Since I'm sure that you have been through the grind in this domain, basically you can brief us better. That what exactly is this? Is this line of work?
Great. I actually happen to know Shubhendu. I met him in UK, a good friend. So research scholars basically is a very wide term and could cover a lot of things. But primary, as the word suggests, that you commit to a research. So either it could be with a professor you are working, a professor is working on a big project, say writing a book or publishing a international peer-reviewed paper, and you want to research on one particular aspect of it. So you could apply yourself there. Other could be, there are positions such as a research assistant position, where say a professor is going to teach for an entire semester. The professor would request that on this topic for this class, we would want research to be done. Similarly, for every class, like say in an Oxford, there would be 10 readings to be done or would be given to students with these readings. So what are these readings? Are these readings updated? Do these readings convey the exact thing what we are trying to say in class? So say, for example, we are going to talk about shrink wrap contracts. Now, how has the law developed? Who will research? So every time a professor would not have perhaps a time or a capacity to find out the exact articles, because the world is so vast, so much is written on shrink wrap contracts nowadays. So that is when research scholars would come into place. They would perhaps shortlist a few articles for the professor and help them. So either it could be in assisting a senior member in writing or assisting a professor. The other thing could be that there is one center in the school. So a lot of times we find Center for Public Policy or Center for Research on Education. So you get associated with one of those centers or one of those areas. Like for Singapore, like NUS had this very good center for studies in international law. So you can research there. You can help. The center's motive would be to work on a particular area of it. So you could also contribute there. So a lot of opportunities for research scholars do come into place. Again, the requirements are different, and primary requirement is that you should have that research bent of mind. You should be able to work for a 10-15 hours on your laptop and perhaps just research on that area, find out new stuff. Again, once you research, that itself won't be sufficient. You will have to codify it also. You will have to put it in a form that the other person to whom you are presenting, to your professor or if you're writing a paper, the other person should be able to read that. And again, this relates back to our earlier point that you would require drafting there. That आपने research तो कर लिया, आपने बहुत बढ़िया चीजें ढूंढ ली, अब उसको आप present कैसे करते हो, उसके लिए you need to have drafting skills. So yeah, I mean, to be selected as a research assistant or a research scholar, your drafting skills would come into play.
Right. Your own experiences this taking up teaching law is, it's quite underrated, and not many people consider it. Your own experiences as a teacher and advice to students of law who are pursuing, as you have already given the advice of developing the drafting skill, any other advice that you would tender to a student of law right now, and just a little bit about being a law professor as a career.
Law professor as a career in India could be a little daunting, because initial days the salary isn't much, to put it very simply, and the workload could be doing a lot of non-law things, such as a lot of admin work that you have to compulsory organize a conference, or you have to be part of some center, or if you are living in the campus, then you have to take care of the mess or of the hostel. So a lot of these admin activities come into picture. And these will come irrespective of whether you are at a Jindal or a NLS or a normal other university. These admin activities are going to come. So that is the thing in India, which I find a little problematic. But I can assure that at least for after a point of time, it gets better once you develop and once you grow that ladder of assistant and associate professor, and then so yeah, I mean that thing should be considered, and if you are going to get associated with teaching, then those additional activities one should be willing to take. What advice I would give to students who are interested in teaching? One, that teaching gets a lot. Teaching provides a lot of satisfaction once you are in that classroom, and once you are able to convey your points to students, and students understand and benefit from it. For me, that provides a lot of satisfaction. It is perhaps much. For me, that has always been much better as compared to the other jobs which I do, like consulting or even litigating. For me, being in that classroom is a lot of fun. So if a person is willing to do that, do the other activities, but in the classroom, you have that freedom. You are the person who drives somebody else's thinking, or you at least put out yourself and then challenge with the ideas of students, and let students also challenge you. So those, if you are in that zone, if you feel that this is something which you would be able to do, then yes, teaching is something which is which could be very interesting. And once you grow, you would have opportunities to write, present papers, and publish, and then all of those things come along with it. So yeah, initially, like in any job also, it could be a little daunting for few for some time, and then it could get better. What advice I would give is perhaps, again, would be very similar. I mean, while you are in law school, you don't know honestly which exact profession you will take. It might be litigation, it might be teaching, it might be something else. And perhaps for all of this, the base is that your basic knowledge of law should be very clear. I mean, even if you're doing litigation, and even if you are doing a corporate job, you need to know the basics of the constitution. You need to know basics of contract law. You need to have some idea of how administration works in our country, admin law, some form of jurisprudence. All of these basics perhaps should be required. It might be possible that if you were doing corporate law, you do not need to have perfect knowledge of CRPC or Evidence Act, and that is understandable. Vice versa also applies. But at least basic knowledge, basic subjects, you should have the knowledge. So perhaps that also applies in teaching.
My final question to you is, अब जैसे इंडिया में हमारा तो टीचिंग के लिए वी नो कि भाई LLM करो, UGC नेट दो, and then basically you get a teaching job. बाहर जैसे आपने काम करा है, so what is there a sine qua non to have had कि भाई इतना LLM या उसके बाद कुछ ऐसे कुछ करने की कोई बेस रिक्वायरमेंट्स हैं, because this is an area that only you can answer.
One, you would need some form of specialized education. So it could be an LLM, it could also be a PhD. Most likely they would require a PhD. two, which is very important, is you need to publish. I mean, one of the basic requirements for a teaching job would be, what are your publications? If somebody wants to read what you have written, that should be available. So and so my advice would be that if you're looking for that teaching job, and I'm sure in India also these requirements would come into future, that you would need to publish. I'm sure in some university it is already there, but it is going.
And then promotion में भी यही चाहिए आपको, publications आजकल चाहिए ही चाहिए.
So perhaps at early stages in law school, if you could try publishing. So for me, one of my first publications was with Karnataka Law Journal when I was studying in the law school. And it is a good journal. It covers a lot of high court judgments and even some supreme. But it provides some space. I'm not saying it's a peer-reviewed journal and all of that, but at least it gives you an opportunity to present your views. A lot of people who litigate in Karnataka read it, and they could at least get your views, challenge your views, or agree. So start with these easier and the journals which are smaller, so like a Gujarat Law Reporter or a Delhi Law Reports, and perhaps then you could once you have done these publications, then it would be easier to move to, say, bigger journals and international and peer-reviewed journals and all of that. But again, all of this would come if a person is willing to apply themselves while in law school. Post law school, post 5-6 years, once responsibilities increase and once you are on the job and to do everything together at that point of time might be very difficult. So while a person is in the law school, please utilize those 5 years well, or 3 years well.
So basically, to sum it up, as always, first figure out who you are. There has to be a why, and in which profession as the student wishes to go, and then basically one has to commit. There is just no other way out of it. And then the college tags also take a sideline as soon as you come into the picture with your specific skill set. And it is golden advice to work on drafting that distinguishes, let us say, a litigant who has been in the legal system for 20 odd years, क्योंकि वो भी वकील ही हो जाता था. But drafting नहीं कर पाएगा. Drafting
one thing which I want to clarify on the earlier point. Like I said, try to figure out what you want, but if you're not able to do that, that is okay. Why you want to do something, it is okay. But like for me, when I was doing that job in Singapore, I also wanted to do litigation. I wanted to do that, and I was getting clearer the day. Each time I saw some friends litigating, or I heard some news, or I read some judgment, so I also tried to figure myself out as I went along. But you will have to keep doing that. If you are able to do it early, very good. If you are in law school only, you are clear, okay, I want to do this for 5 years or 7 years, I want to be here. That is very good. But if you're not, that is also okay. But then you will have to keep reminding yourself that is this something which I'm happy with? Is this something which I'm satisfied with? Or I want to explore, I want to do something else. So yeah, try to figure out why you want something. But if you're not, that is okay. But please, in that journey, be conscious that, I still can figure out something else.
Right. So adding on to that point, so on social media, I believe that everyone portrays ki bhai, we had it figured out just like that, and it doesn't work like that. So when you're on the journey figures yourself, or the way that you have to take, it becomes clearer. But the thing is to walk, as to keep on walking, and to keep on walking through that journey, things become much more clearer. Kids are in illusion these days that that everyone had it figured out. Nobody has it figured out. So
nobody has it figured out. Yeah.
When I'm sure that Dr. Motwani must have been at his college, he didn't exactly had this in mind, that he would be a teaching fellow at the Kennedy Harvard Law School today in 2022. So as soon as you start walking, as soon as you take those steps, you get to know yourself also a bit more as you start aging, as you start growing up. And then once you are walking on the journey, I'm sure that most of us figure ourselves out and the path ahead. All right, so on that note, I thank you again, Dr. Motwani, for taking out time and this invaluable advice that you have given. I'm sure that will be a lot of help to a lot many people.
Thank you, Saj. Very nice talking to you, and I hope I have been able to clarify a few points for the students.
Right. Thank you, sir.